Hello there, this is Nick Harris, and in case you don't recognise it, this is the interface of Sketchbook Pro 2011. I'm using it to sketch out an owl wearing armour, because that's a question that's been posed in ImagineFX. Any of you who've bumped into me online will know I'm pretty keen on art rage, and you would probably expect to find me in any videos that I show. But I'm just as keen on Sketchbook Pro because it's got that same clean interface. You won't know it from the way I've got it laid out at the moment because I've got everything open, including custom brushes, which I'm just folding up at the moment. But it is another clean interface, very easy to use. It's uncluttered, so I like this just as much. I've laid down a blue background because this is going to be called Night Owl, night with a K, but I'm into bad puns. And I've sketched out an owl, a basic barn owl. I'm in the UK, barn owls over here, white faces, brown bodies, and it seemed to me that the look of the barn owl, which is the white face would be there, brown body going down there, is very like a chainmail coif. You probably think I'm lisping at the moment. No, coif, C-O-I-F. A chainmail kind of balaclava that you would wear under a helmet, and some of the ones coming up to around the 14th century would come up sort of just over the chin, and it very much reminded me of the look of the barn owl, so it seemed an obvious choice to go with. This isn't going to be an in-depth video. I'm going to hop about, and it's going to seem to move in jerks and leaps because it's only just a little thing to support the Q&A that I'm doing here. So I've turned the basic drawing of the armour off for the moment, but I'll turn it back on. I've been doing it in a different colour on different layers, just so I can tell which is the drawing of the owl and which is the armour, as I'm basically designing it as I go along. The idea, he says, banging the microphone with his thumb, sorry about that, is to make the weaponry, that's the sword, shield, spear, shield, whatever you want to think it is, to be part of the plumage of the bird itself. I don't really like the idea of distorting the bone structure of the owl so much so that it would have gripping hands at the end of its wings. So I'd rather deform the wings into being part of the armour itself. This part here, ooh, didn't mean to do that. This part here being the shield, and then a couple of the primary feathers sticking up and down and sharpened, maybe covered with metal plates to become the offensive weaponry, then leaving the claws free to do whatever they want with. So pretty a formidable little bird in the end. So apart from that, it's a question of designing the plates of the armour to suit the morphology of the animal itself. This isn't a big stretch really if you think about it, because we've been doing that with horses and elephants and various animals that we've used in rather nasty ways for hundreds of years. So you've just got to think in that sort of way, just beat the plates to fit the shape of the animal itself. The only difference in the bird being particularly that if you want it to be able to fly, you've got to leave it enough play that its wings will be able to move freely. So I'll be trying to think about leaving enough space around there so that it wouldn't impede it in flight. Hoppity skip 1. I've started to lay in a little bit of tone just to try and make sure I understand the shapes and to help prevent me from drifting off them as I start drawing the armour and stuff like that. It would be easy to do with me. The tone is on this layer up here. You set it to multiply using these controls, and I'm using a custom brush I've made here. That's a sample of it. You can see the brush head there. It's a load of little sort of soft blobby marks, and you can play with the controls to tweak it to your own personal tastes. Well, I haven't given it to you, but I'm saying that's how you control your brushes, your custom brushes. But there are no specific paper textures or anything in this software, So you introduce textures, and that either by having photo textures that you bring in yourself, or making these sort of brushes that you can then paint with. Just blobbing in some general, just a bit of interesting shapes. To make additive kind of more depth, I will add another layer. I will set that to multiply, and using let's go for that's a sort of warmish colour. Let's go for its counterpoint, sort of purpley colour. That'll be too dark to start with. I'll try that one. These are all custom colours I've dropped in there. You can change these at any time. You just drop things on top of them or add new ones. Expand at the bottom and add into the new empty wells there. As you see, it's getting darker. Let's go back and put edges where I want them. That will be a glinting edge, a focal point at the top, because obviously to get the idea of armour, I would be wanting bits of light to glint on it to point out what it is. So if you counterpoint it next to dark areas, it will zing more. Very basic sort of rules there. I'm just making loose marks. I haven't got anything particular in mind, which my wife will tell you that's a permanent state for me. I haven't got anything particularly going on in my mind. Apart from bad puns, which I've told you about. Better to be warned about those. Need to make that mark there. Control Z. I can make the brush smaller easily by holding down B, dragging. It's just one of the shortcuts that's nice in SKB, which makes the workflow nice. It's always a good idea to learn a few good shortcuts in whatever software you're using. It just makes the workflow so much nicer, so much swifter and smoother, and they become second nature very quickly. Worth learning. A bit too purple for me there. See, I'm getting finicky already. Keep it loose, Nick. You can use, I'm using the other end of the stylus at the moment. You can change the brush size just as easily by holding B for the eraser as well. Which is always handy. It's nice to be able to do things like this on the fly. My left hand is just hovering. I'm right-handed. My left hand is just hovering over a keyboard. I'm working on a PC at home, a desktop. As you can see, it's all still really loose and rough. And at the moment, I can't remember what size is the image canvas. I've got the canvas. Come on. At it's about getting on for 4,000 square, that kind of size. Okay, now there's going to be another hoppity skip. Ga-doing! And here I am in ArtRage. I've saved it out from Sketchbook Pro as a layered PSD, and it opens fine in ArtRage. The only thing you will notice is where you have multiply blend mode layers, for some reason or other they translate as tint, so I've just changed all those to multiply to keep it consistent, and I didn't have the colours saved here, so I've approximated the few muted colours I was using, which is here, saved them in samples, and I'm just carrying on. As you can see, I've consolidated the drawing of the armour a little bit more. I've added a bit more detail in the background, trying to turn it off. There we are. When I say detail, it's fuzzy. A bit more tonal interest, I should say, in the background, and generally built it up a bit. And so this is where it's got to now. You may actually be a little bit curious about the layout I've got here and why I've got my tools up in this corner. I just wanted to keep most things to one side. Obviously there's boxes and that over here. That is the textures, stencils I've got open there, and presets. Particularly when you get into stickers, this can get very long, so I wanted more space over there for it. But you can tear these palettes off. I tore this off from that corner and moved it there and scaled it down because I don't want a big footprint for it. It's quite big enough for me to select the tool I need to and then move in. This is why I'm now selecting the pencil and zooming in. I'm holding down Control and Shift and dragging, zooming into the drawing. You can see it's still pretty naff, but I'm not planning on this being a huge image. So when I output it at about 2,000 to 3,000, this will help tidy up a lot of the line work. You won't notice quite how crappy it is. I will work fairly quietly for a while, just drawing. It's very boring for you, but you can watch this if you want. It's very like everyone else. Look, I move the cursor, it makes marks on it. Gosh, that's me drawing. You will find that that will happen for you as well if you do the same thing. I have marked with names a few of the layers just to help me keep tabs on what's going on. I could name all of them, which is what you should do really, but I find if I have just a few marker layers with their names on, that, unless it gets really big and unwieldy, is enough to keep me organised. This will be that coif I told you about, in case you've forgotten already. That was like the chainmail balaclava that this little critter will be wearing. The shape of the helmet I've picked does in some ways go with it. It's a good idea to look at armour to get some ideas. I've got a really nice book by Jerry Embleton and John Howe called The Medieval Soldier, which is full of reenactment photos of them doing all sorts of things over in Europe, dressed up as armoured knight. John Howe's a bit of a nut about this kind of thing. Nut in a good way. He's a real expert enthusiast. These are the sort of nuts we want. No, stop getting into doing chainmail. Oh, it's so tempting. I will sort that out later. Go for the shapes first. God, see how easy it is to get sucked into these bad habits. That I'm likely, I think that will be chainmail as well, I think. Because he, she, I think it'll be a he, would need that kind of flexibility over his shoulders to be able to fly. If that would be a bit clanky, otherwise it wouldn't be very silent flying, would it? In fact, I do doubt he's going to be able to do the silent flying wearing all this gear. I think the mice will be safe. I don't think this is a mouse chasing effort. This is more defensive. Maybe the mice are going to attack. Now I'm tempted down here with the armour to put flourishes, feather-shaped flourishes. Why would the armour not reflect the beast? Be more decorative. These are the kind of things that are just really fun to play with. Hopefully you will be having loads of fun if you decide to do this kind of thing. This is the kind of thing you'll bring your own imagination to it, but colour it with real life research that you pick up off the internet, books, wherever you get it. I use both. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have built up a reasonable library over the 30 years, said quickly, that I've been doing it, and I was collecting books before that as well, so I've got a fair few lying around here, piled up here. I don't need a chair, I'm almost sitting on them. They're just everywhere, coming at me yin yang they are. Of course, are they indexed? Well, not really. But for some reason or other, mostly I can remember the sorts of things that are in them, because I do buy them with a purpose. I don't just willy-nilly go buying books. It's normally because I need them for something, or I can perceive I will need them for something in the future. Bargain bookstores used to be a big haunt of mine. I don't so much now, since the internet has got so much better. Well, in fact, since I've got on the internet, really. I don't know if it's got better, I've just got on it. And we all know quite how accurate some of the information on the internet is, so you do have to take some of what you find with a pinch of salt. Well, in fact, a handful of salt. Doesn't help the taste, but makes you wonder about it. As you should. Good old Wikipedia, eh? So accurate. I'm still credited as illustrating the firework maker's daughter as an American football kicker. I didn't know I was so talented. I don't get the money for it. For being an American football kicker, I mean. I have a funny idea that there's another chap with the same name. As if that could happen. So do check. If it's important and you have to rely on the information you find online, it is worth checking. I'm waffling, aren't I? I think I should do another good doing hoppity hop. Boing, and bouncing back in. You can see about 10 minutes on, I've been splashing about with, I've made a watercolour layer there, except I don't set it to watercolour. I set the blend mode to multiply. It just suits me more, and I find that it saves accurately if you're saving as PSD, and if you need to move to another program that doesn't support watercolour, then you haven't got that problem. And I also dropped a darkening layer over the top, which has got a little bit of, can you see that? Or you will when it appears again. It's got these gradients, radial gradients, soft gradients, dropped over it as I just filled it with a colour using the bucket fill, and it filled around those, and it's given a nice sweep of light through the middle, very loose, very rough. If you've never played with the watercolours in Art Rage and you like watercolour, these are really nice, very easy to use. I do like them, and as with other digital watercolour, although not so much in Painter, which have very specific layers, layer types that aren't always transferable, with these you can do all the same stuff you can do with other layers. You can, hang on, this is the other end of the stylus, so you can rub out, you can use You can use smearing brushes, like I use the wet blender. So I mean, this is just very blocky. This, you wouldn't have to leave it loose like this if you didn't want to. You could always block it in more, and you can splodge it round over the edges and then go back in and tidy up afterwards. Or if you've made a stencil mask of some description, you can use that, of course. I'm not that planned for this. I'm winging it as usual, which is why I do as much rubbing out as I do painting, because I make lots of mistakes. It's how you find what you want. You're looking for the line, you're looking for the right tonal balance. But it's given it all a little bit more depth already quite quickly. I'm not quite sure how this bit's working yet. It's looking a bit too much like that deformed hand thing that I was trying to avoid. Urgh. Hopefully when I've tidied up the feathers, made them clearly feathers, it will be more obvious what I'm trying to show here. We're still a way off, and you would actually get grey hairs watching me do this, so I'll hoppity hop again. As you can see, I've slopped another layer of watercolour on here to try and darken everything a bit. Well, not everything, but the tonal values a bit, which makes him sing out a bit more. It's beginning to make a bit more sense, look a bit more solid. I've also introduced a bit of texture, or tried to, but it's not really showing yet. I'll beef that up more as I go. You can turn these off and on in the stencils palette. However many you've got loaded, you can do that. That's good. That becomes useful later on if you have a lot of stencils to introduce textures or shapes or whatever. So that's really handy. That particular texture is in fact one that is already on one of the ImagineFX discs, because it's a picture of some moss I took in Lancaster, and I included it as part of the photographs that went with the last question about drawing a tomb. I took a lot of pictures in a cemetery, got a few funny looks, and so that's already out there if you need that. I can't see I'm not going to bother putting it out there again. You can find it. It'll encourage you to buy the magazine. There you are, IFX. I'm doing your sales for you. I'm just carrying on doing the same kind of stuff, tidying. As you see, the drawing's still really scratty. The arm has begun to make a bit more sense. I've started to try and show the forms with the tone as well as the line. Well, in fact, the line isn't going to show the form much because it's only running outside. If I was doing cross-hatching, that sort of shading, then it would be showing the form more. And also, I'm not really very good with using big variations in line weight. I wouldn't make a good inker for a comic. I haven't got that fluidity or that confidence with line. I'm a fiddler. I do lines a bit at a time. I'm not someone that does big sweeping curves. I'm someone that sort of works their curve out a bit at a time. Whatever way works for you, do it. As you can see, I've also introduced a tiny bit more detail and flourishes on the helmet. That needs a lot more work. Everything needs a lot more work. It will be very limited how much further I can take this, because I've got to finish this today, and I'm a renowned slow coach. I only really started it sort of late. Yes, well, this one today really. So for me, this is a speedy. I know you guys all put me to shame, but ho hum. You see, if I'd known exactly what the form was going to be, what the overall shape was going to be, I could have made a mask for this, or in the case of ArtRage, made a stencil. If I was organised, it would be something I would consider doing now, blocking in the shape underneath using a solid colour, and then from that making a stencil that I can just switch on and off whenever I need it, and by inverting it I could just get rid of any of this extraneous stuff I didn't want. I don't tend to do that much. If I wanted really crispy edges and stuff, I might do that, but I quite like the more, this gives it a more, it takes longer, but it'll give it a more hand painted look, because it won't be perfect. If you're using a mask for every time, everything gets exactly the same edge. This way you get a little bit of imperfection around the edges, helps for that hand painted look if that's what you're after. ArtRage is good for that kind of thing anyway, but you can also make pristine bits of artwork in it if you work that way. You can in a lot of software. This must be a bit like watching paint dry for you, except it's not real paint and it's not drying, it's being erased. So this must be a bit like watching paint being erased for you. We should come up with some new digital equivalents for paint drying and stuff like that, really, shouldn't we? You probably do get the idea now that I do prattle on a bit. That's what happens when you work on your own for 30 years. You become a prattler. Not in all cases. You should notice as the darker tones get darker, then when you clean up the lighter tones, the contrast is more and they begin to zing more. So when you want hard edges on things like metal, the more you do this, the more it's going to crisp it up, the more it's going to feel like shiny metal. This area around the beak is beginning to make a bit more sense now. That wasn't working at all before. The shape of the face, which is actually, when I say designed, I don't mean that someone sat at a desk and worked it out. I mean evolution has designed it in such a way that it is an echo receptor, like a dish for receiving sound. Not echo, actually, just sound receptor, isn't it? They're not bats, not going and then waiting for that. It's when it hears mice and stuff like that, it's fantastically accurate at detecting what direction they've come from, and it's actually got a slightly concave face with the beak in the middle. So I would like to show that. As you're not seeing much of the owl itself, I'd like to show a little bit of the shape of that. So that should be coming forward, and with the visor, that will be a visor. Dropping down, going back, and I'm going to bounce again. Bye. And here I am hippity hopping back in a bit further on. I spent a bit more time in it this time. Hopefully you can see it's got more depth to it now. That's mostly to do with the fact I've slapped yet another layer of tone on and then worked back into it. You can see from the indicator on the layer palette that it's not just flat, there is work in that. That was another flood fill, and then working back in with a chalk with sort of a lilac-y tint and a slightly turquoisey tint. Plus the texture here is worked up a bit more. I mean, it's still very crude. There's a bit of details slapped in under there in the drawing. Overall, it still doesn't make an awful lot of sense in terms of what's going on, apart from you've got this owl character stood on a kind of gnarly knoll thing, and that's probably going to have to be it when it comes to the composition, because I'm not going to have time to put loads of things in. I haven't been doing anything different to what I've described so far. It's just tidying up the drawing, working into the layers, the various layers set to multiply. All these are set to multiply, and they all overlap each other and build up the sort of subtleties and the nuances. See, like that. Anytime you've got anywhere that you think is a bit hard edged, like I think that edge there looks a little bit harsh to me, you can get the wet blender, the wet under palette knife. It's obviously much too big at the moment. That's me holding shift and dragging to change the size, and then I can just soften it. Look at that. Ooh! But I'm also going to rub a bit out because losing contrast there, and I want it to be more zingy than that. This is the eraser being used, in case you're wondering. I will have to pick out the eyes here. They don't look like anything much at the moment, more like eye sockets, don't they? There's more detail in the chainmail, but it's not very accurate, but it'll have to do. Claws need more work. All this stuff needs more resolving, but I have crisped up some of the feathers here. I'm not happy this bit's not working properly. The eyepiece is beginning to work okay. It's not wonderful, but I've added a layer. I've added a layer on top of everything where it's put just highlights. It's nice to have a layer where you can just put in the glints and the highlights that crisp everything up at the end. I sort of try doing a bit of that about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through to make sure that's going to work, and to see how it's actually going to pick it out, give you a realistic expectation about how the thing may turn out in the end. But at the moment I'm going to go back and do a bit more drawing around here and sort of down there, try and give a bit more form. That would probably be going into a sort of mist effectively. When in doubt, have it misty. You don't have to do so much then. That's this one, isn't it? I'm on the right layer. No, I'm not. That's why it's not disappearing. Yes, you numpty. Not working on the right layer. See what I said about how you should name all your layers? That's the one I'm looking for. Recognize it from the what's marked in the indicator there. No, that's better. Again, this for you will be like watching paint dry. Because I just fiddle and fiddle and fiddle. That is my way of doing things. Bit of erasing, because I want this, even though it's scratty stuff, I want it to be reasonably tidily represented, to be in keeping with the way the owl is rendered, or will be rendered. But again, hoppity hop, out I go, and I will bring you up to speed again a bit later. And by now I've got fed up with working on lots of layers, so I've flattened it down to one layer, because I think I've reached a stage where I'm not going to do anything too major to it, and it doesn't need too much tidying up. There's bits and pieces left, right and centre that need doing, but it's nicer to do them just on one or two layers, and I will make another layer and start tidying up the bits that I think need tidying up. and I've run out of time, so I'm going to have to stop there. All I've been doing for the last sort of 20-25 minutes is basically having fun, really, trying to save it from being a total disaster, putting little tweaks here and there, touches, trying to bring out highlights here and there, added a bit of rim lighting, I suppose you'd call it. It's reflected light from a sort of a different lights, a different colour. It helps describe the form. Put it down that side of the body. Introduced a bit of blue down the other side. It just rounds everything round to make it seem, give it more volume, which is with armour and reflective surfaces is something you can do quite easily. So I think that's going to be it for this one. I'd like to take it a lot further, but I just haven't got the time. Okay, well, I hope you get something from it. See you next time. Bye.